pick up Hooters waitresses and bang them in cheap hotels, Tiger. And it was like, he's a fascinating, because of that, because the first half of his career was just absolutely fascinating to watch somebody dominate their sport in a way you very rarely see. You only see that with number 23.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's he was a fascinating person to watch. But then after the fact, and like all the injuries that he had and everything that went wrong with his life, like his Masters victory last year was something like that was like storybook to me.
Yeah.
Because it was like this like fallen angel finding greatness one more time.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, and it meant a lot to a guy like me. Like I just, because I was such a fan, I still remain a fan. Like, I think he's one of the greatest golfers you'll ever see. He just, between his emotional issues and his physical issues, I mean, he won the U.S. Open against Rocco Mediate, like on a bad knee.
Right.
Like, and as a golfer, like, that had to be excruciating. Because the U.S. Open, they don't you don't play extra holes. You play an extra day.
Right.
So you go out there, you play 18 more holes, and he's got a fucked up knee, and he's wincing with like every drive and every shot just because he's wrenching that knee, and just like, you're just like, holy hell. And he goes out and he beats Rocco Mediate. Like, Rocco Mediate's one shot at greatness.
Right.
And it's against Tiger Woods with a bad knee. That was Tiger's flu game.
Yeah.
And it's like he's like this fascinating character. Like winning was everything with him. He was very Jordan-esque in that. Like, second place wasn't good enough. Third place wasn't good enough. He had to win.
Right.
And like to see like him fall from grace the way that he did, and all the problems that he had, and the physical problems afterwards, because like of everything that like went, like, I mean, he had a bad back. He still has a bad back. He had a bad knee. Like, everything that went wrong with him physically. Like, you just wonder, like, if this shit didn't happen, like, how far past Mickelson's record of majors would he be?
Right.
Like, I mean, it was just, it's so interesting. Like, it's like to see him win the Masters last year for me was like this triumphant moment. So like to have HBO kind of doing like an all access documentary, for me is something like that'll be must see TV.
Including hotel footage.
Yeah, including hotel footage. But the second question I'll ask then is, who do you want to see a documentary like in the spirit of The Last Dance? Like, what athlete do you eventually want to see that documentary of?
I don't know. That's tough. A lot of sports out there.
Yeah.
It's hard to go with basketball because it's been done. I mean, I don't think you just can't top Jordan's. Maybe a Lemieux.
Okay.
There's definitely a story there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a pretty good story there.
Yeah.
The whole cancer battle.
Yeah.
The comeback game. I mean, I hate to be hometown Harry here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story there.
Yeah.
To me, it's much more interesting than Gretzky's. There's just more behind it. Maybe because I'm from Pittsburgh, yeah. But the guy had cancer. He came back. That game was amazing. You know what I mean?
The back issues. Like, he's a guy that, like, you could honestly say, like, maybe he passes Gretzky if he doesn't have the health issues.
Sure. I mean, and then beyond.
Yeah. Saving the franchise a second time.
Correct. I mean, there's definitely a story there. There's a line there, and they can peak it and end it with Crosby. Bringing the next kid in. But Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just a good story that
Yeah.
needs to be told. And I think it does need to be told. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because there's a lot of Gretzkyites out there that are like, greatest player ever played the game. I was like, have you ever seen Lemieux live? You know what I mean?
I think it's
I'm not denying Gretzky wasn't good.
right. Gretzky's tough because he has two things that go for him. I mean, one, he's one of the greatest players who's ever played the game. I don't think anybody can doubt that for a second. But also, he played like 20 fucking years. You know, like he had something that you didn't, and that was extreme longevity. You know,
Unfortunately, never played for another team.
Yeah,
you never played for another team.
Yeah, Gretzky played for like 4.
Yeah,
but
4 or 5.
Yeah, something like that, something ridiculous. But at the same time, like it's one of those weird things where like again, like you know, if I said like if Lemieux didn't have the back issues, if he didn't lose the time to cancer, you know, if he didn't retire and then come back, you know, all the things that he had to go through, like in his career, like you got to wonder, like, man, could he have challenged Gretzky for those records?
Yeah,
that's the problem. Like, you know, because he didn't have the health and longevity Gretzky had. He doesn't, you know. But yet, I think if you look at his ability on the ice, yes, I mean he's as good as, if not maybe better than Gretzky.
Right.
You know, so it's a tough argument to have just because Gretzky played so long with great health.
Yeah.
But I think for me, there's two that come to mind right away that I think like the Last Dance type of format would work well with, and one is Kobe.
Okay.
You know, I think his career is interesting enough as like the predecessor to Jordan.
Okay.
You know, he won 5 titles. You know, Phil Jackson was his head coach. You know, like those are kind of things that, like, you know, there's a nice correlation between the two. Everything that happened with Shaq. You know, like that feud that took place essentially, and why Shaq left and everything else, and you know, and you got to wonder, like, man, how many titles could they have won if they could have just got their shit together? You know.
Yeah.
But the other guy is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You know, you when you talk about, like, you know, competitors, like, I would love to hear like behind the scenes stuff about Tom Brady, because you know he's the type of guy that pushed. Like, he won. It's funny, like when he wins with lesser talent around him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when he had Randy Moss, he lost 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
You know, when he doesn't have Randy Moss, when he's got, like, you know, Smurfs for wide receivers, he wins.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's one of those.
The ball up.
Right, but it's like, so it's interesting. Like, you know, how did he treat like that Moss situation when he had a great team, but yet, you know, they couldn't win the big one, as compared to having lesser talent around them and pushing that talent to be great.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to me, that would be a very interesting story.
Sure, definitely.
You know, so I think that those are the two that kind of jump to my mind that I would find most interesting.
Yeah. Brady, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Montana would be an interesting one. I just can't stand him. It's not that I can't stand him. It's just you just don't turn your back on your town.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I know. But, like, I don't think the Joe Montana one would be interesting, because I don't think he's that interesting of a person.
You might be right.
Like, I honestly don't. Like, everything I've heard about Joe Montana is, like, you know, he's kind of laid back. He was never like this rah-rah leader. I can't see him being a guy who, like, in practices was, like, pushing people. You know, I think that was all the coaches. You know, he was just a guy like, I'll just get you the ball. You know, I think that type of leadership was left to other people.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
Yeah.
The man he throw.
And that's the thing. Like the guys that you talk, like, and it's weird, like, because, like, you know, I look at Joe Montana, I look at him as one of the greatest of all time. Hello, Ahsoka. I look at Montana as, like, one of the greatest of all time, but, like, I think there are other quarterbacks who are probably better leaders than he was.
Yeah, but man, could that guy throw a ball?
Oh, yeah. He was probably one of the most intellectual quarterbacks ever.
Yeah.
Like, he could come up to the line of scrimmage, like, he probably, like, it's probably the same thing with Tom Brady. He could come to the line of scrimmage, he could figure out exactly what was going on and know exactly where he needed to go with the ball right away.
Right.
Like, there was no hesitation.
Right.
I know, oh, you're here, I'm going to this guy over here.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, look, it worked out just the way I thought it would. You know.
But he was money, though.
He was, yeah. I mean, what's the biggest difference between Tom Brady and Joe Montana? Well, Joe Montana never threw an interception in a Super Bowl.
Right.
You know, I mean, granted, he didn't go to 8, but, I mean, he went to 4, won all 4, and, you know, was perfect.
Right.
You know, like, so, I mean, I'll wholeheartedly admit that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time at this point, just based upon, like, what he's done over his career. But, like,
that his wife, well, it was the Montana Rice combo too.
Yeah,
it was just crushing. They had a good team, period. Those Super Bowl years.
Yeah, but I mean, don't forget, Joe Montana won 2 Super Bowls without Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean, he had Dwight Clark and Will Freddie.
Yeah.
You know.
Dwight Clark. Boy.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's one of those things where, like, Joe Montana was in a position where he had the perfect head coach who was running the perfect system for his abilities.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how that worked out. Like, I mean, you know, it's the same. Like, the people have always said the Steelers fucked up by not drafting Dan Marino in '83.
Yeah.
And in a way, they're right.
Right.
You know, because that last year that they drafted Senior Sack. You know, he put himself through a car window.
Yeah.
5 games and never walked again, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know. But, like, the thing is, like, so Dan Marino went to Miami. Don Shula, who was an old school run first coach, realized what the fuck he had in Dan Marino and let him go. You know what I mean? Like, the Dolphins went from being 3 yards in a cloud of dust to, like, the predecessor to the greatest show on turf.
Right.
You know what I mean? Chuck Noll wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Chuck Noll would have used him the same way he used Bradshaw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the difference. So I don't see, like, where Dan Marino would have been one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time had he been a Pittsburgh Steeler, because they wouldn't have unleashed him like Don Shula did.
Right.
You know, he might have been very good. He might have won a couple of Super Bowls, maybe, because they would have built, you know, they would have built a defense, and they, you know, like, the Steelers would have done more to bolster the things around him than Shula did. But at the same time, like,
had,
you know,
Lewis Lips.
Yeah, like, yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, he would have had Stallworth and Lips. That would have been a hell of a combination. Yeah. But yet they would have leaned on a running game first.
Right.
You know, where Shula was just like, fuck it, let him throw 50 times a game. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he's our best weapon. Why would I hold him back?
All right.
So that's the difference. But yet he only went to 1 Super Bowl and didn't win.
I know.
That's the difference. Like, they never built a defense around him. He never had a running game. Like, they would just get him, like, a line and some wide receivers from time to time. But like you look at like how they drafted and shit, like